Hello? Is this your DoorDash? I had to travel an incalculable distance across time, space, and thought. Are you going to be leaving a tip for this? This is episode 539 of an Unearthly podcast, streaming live on the 10th of May, 2025, and featuring The Story and the Engine, written by Inua Elums, and starring Shudigato as the Doctor and Verada Sithu as Belinda Chandra. I'm Bill Sylvia, the one in black, and if I had thought about it, I should have looked up the proper pronunciation of the writer's name. With me are Alex Fireheart.
I'm tempted to do the shave and a haircut thing, but I'm not sure if my mic would pick it up.
And Aaron Romeo Moonberg.
Hello.
How's everyone's week going?
Not too bad. Gotta. Of course, the annoying thing is that I got a bigger pay. This week just gone. Because of the working last week, which is why I wasn't here. And then I realized, I'm basically out of soap, and I need to buy some more underwear because I'm running some pairs I've had for ages are finally starting to go. So after paying for that, I'm like, well, there's most of my pay gone, I guess.
I like how we go from off
but...
stream. We go from off stream. Oh, maybe there's some things we don't want for broadcast on the stream.
Yeah.
Straight into running out of underwear.
I mean, it's not that bad. I'm not going into detail or anything, but but it was just like, oh, there's like $200 out of my pay gone. Now, mind you, I've still got a decent amount aside and all that, but it was like, I was putting it off for the longest time, but I'm like, I should probably get that out of the way now.
Yeah, sounds like a good call.
Yeah, especially because it might seem weird to some people that it's like, wait, why is soap such an issue? And it's like, well, because most normal soap that you can just walk into a shop and buy, for some reason, I don't know what it is, like what thing is in most normal soaps that does it, but when I use soap like that, certain soaps on like my back, and that it breaks out in a rash and all this, so I'm like, oh, I guess I can't use certain soaps anymore.
Have you tried the perfume free, like specific allergenic ones?
Yeah, like the stuff I start buying now is from a local place that like soap is like their whole thing, and all as far as I know, all of their soap is like hypoallergenic. So the only way that you would have an issue is if an ingredient they use aside from that you're allergic to or something. Like I think some of them have lavender in it and all this, but yeah, they gave me when I was working a full day once, they were like, well, hey, someone never picked this up and we need to close up and get out because it was just like a little pop-up thing.
Gotcha.
So do you want it? And I was like, okay, free soap, I'll take it. And I noticed that my back started clearing up when I used their soap, so I was like, oh, okay, because I used to have like really bad back knee, and it was like,
yeah, that's really good to know what'll do that.
Yeah, so it's like, oh, sweet.
I gotta say the worst I've had for something like that is I tried a different shower gel one time. Like I was like, oh yeah, I don't need to buy the name brand. I can buy some brand I've never heard of. And it just it didn't like break out or anything, but it just like it felt like it bothered my skin. It just like like it whatever an aftertaste for skin would be after shaving. And that's not as bad as what you're describing. That's the closest I've come to it though.
Yeah, aside from that, it's basically just been a gaming and stuff. Although I've noticed ever since, like, especially like the more aware I'm becoming of being autistic, the more I'm realizing, oh, so that's why my energy seems to spike while I'm at work. It's because I've basically gone into fight or flight mode. So that's why I'm
Ah,
more energetic, because I'm like, my body's like, you need to get the fuck out of here. But I've never realized that that's what it was. So, like,
mm.
oh, that's why I'm so energetic at work. uh,
Hmm.
How about you,
Um,
Aaron? Anything interesting?
well, continuing with the interesting, life stories type stuff, I'm up visiting my dad. Apparently we're going to be, with the aid of my uncle and my brother, we are putting him in a assisted living, or moving him into assisted living here on Monday. It's actually a place that looks better than just about any apartment I've ever lived in. So that
That's
kind
good.
of gives
So,
that
so it's
kind
not
of
one of the
is
ones that
heartening.
looks like
So
a hospital room.
yeah, it's not one of those. It's like an actual, like, a little apartment like thing, and there's a laundry room and there's a barber shop next to the activity, living room. So and they eat in a common room downstairs, and we'll, make sure he has plenty of like clothes, and I want to bring over some food for him and stuff like that. Probably, still take him out for like, you know, meals and everything too. So,
Hmm.
and that try and make him as comfortable as possible, and then rehome the animals as best as we can. Probably take them to the animal shelter and start cleaning up the house and get it ready for sale. Um, so I'm in town doing that, but I also went to the Amish store. Everything that was pretty cool. I also forgot my toothbrush. I was going to mention that I forgot to pack a toothbrush, so I had to go out and buy a new one. For like $9 for two toothbrushes. So toothbrushes? I don't know. Anyway, the Amish store had these really cool like peanut butter, like kind of like a buttercup type, or a peanut butter cup type thing. But it's peanut butter where the chocolate should be, and on the inside is strawberry jelly, which is like, it's actually really super tasty strawberry jam.
So it's a peanut
So
butter and jelly without the bread.
yeah, peanut butter and jelly. It's just that super sweet like peanut butter that you sometimes find inside. Well, maybe sometimes inside like a Buckeye or something like that. One of those Buckeye treats where it's chocolate and then peanut butter on the inside.
Ah,
And that, so it's kind of a smooth peanut butter and then a strawberry jelly on the inside. And it's, like I said, it's really good. It's like actual jelly and not this weird. I had a friend at work try Reese's peanut butter cups, peanut butter and jelly cups. So, and she couldn't even taste the jelly, and it looked really weird and gross, like almost like a
mm.
gummy type stuff. So, I'll take this over one of those any day. Oh, also they had freeze dried honey and also freeze dried taffy. Like look, like these big balls that you just kind of bite into, and it's almost like eating like a mallow cookie or something like that, or a mallow treat where it just kind of disintegrates into your mouth. But those were both really tasty if you ever get a chance to try them.
Yeah.
How about you, Bill?
So I am, of course, in the final week of my semester. I'm spending a lot of my time writing. I did actually win I was awarded a certificate. Basically, it's kind of the entry level teaching certificate they have at the school. It's mostly intended for people who are like maybe they're only going to be in grad school long enough to teach one class and spend most of their time doing research. I do plan to do more teaching and gain other certificates, but you never know what comes. And if somebody awarded me, $30,000 to so that I never had to teach and could just focus on graduating, I would probably take it. So I figured, apply for this once I'm eligible and meet the requirements. So I have that. I did a review of Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed, which is something I've wanted to read for years. So that was nice. I was able to, apply some actual like real world community organizing, social justice stuff that is also related to teaching effectively. So I had to write a paper basically connecting how that would be valuable in the classroom. So that was nice. Otherwise, yeah, I have just pretty much I've finished most of my responsibilities for the semester, other than writing a couple papers. And then I do have to say, like, I'm still kind of I do not currently have a summer job, so after I get paid next week, I do not technically get paid again for 3 months. I'm looking for like tutoring jobs and stuff. This would be a very great time if anybody wants to go to ko.fi.com/one in black and buy me a coffee. Because I do not know exactly what my budget is going to be like, but I do know that they did get rid of the restriction to stop banks from charging an arm and a leg in overdraft fees. So I might be screwed if I am forced to pay bills that I can't handle. But I'm going to keep looking for tutoring jobs and such, so hopefully my summer goes better than it could. Because I do want to spend some time relaxing and writing and such. On tonight's show, very, very brief channel update. Then we have our birthdays and news, some geek talk, our episode summary, uh, possibly a brief Elements of Doctor Who discussion, and then our episode review, final thoughts and ratings, plus our predictions for the last 3 episodes of the season. So we'll move on to Aaron with the birthdays.
All right. So, beginning with May 5th, we have Richard E. Grant, the 10th Doctor in The Curse of Fatal Death, the Doctor in Scream of the Shalka, and Dr. Simeon and the Great Intelligence in Series 7 has turned 68. Also May 5th is Terry Walsh, a stunt and character actor in 35 stories spanning 1966 to 1978, and fight arranger for 11 stories from 1972 to 1978. Would have been 86, but died in 2002 at 62. Also May 5th is Delia Derbyshire, Doctor Who title music arranger, would have been 88, but died in 2001 at 64. Oh, this is like the whole group of people that didn't they have like a huge asbestos thing in the studio? Where
Doctor
all
Who
these
in
people are like,
yeah, the BBC in
yeah,
general did, yeah. Or I mean, I
where a
feel like
lot
a
of these,
lot of the film, probably the whole industry did.
where it's just there's a lot of people who worked in the industry in the 60s and 70s who wound up passing away around the same time at around the same age. So could be happenstance, but all right. So continue. May 6th, we have Susan Brown, Bridget Spears, who played Bridget Spears in Torchwood, Children of Earth, plus worked for Big Finish, turned 79. May 6th is also Nicholas Mallet, director of 3 serials from 1986 to 1989, would have been 80, but died in 1997 at 51. Moving on to May 7th, we have Valentine Dial, who played the Black Guardian from 1965 to 1983, would have been 117, but died in 1985 at 77. And then finally, we have May 8th, Douglas Camfield, director of 9 stories from 1964 to 1976, would have been 94, but died in 1984 at the age of 52.
All right. So yes, happy birthday, Richard, Terry, Delia, Susan, Nicholas,
Okay.
Valentine, and Douglas. Moving on to our episode news. In the overnight ratings, Lucky Day was watched by an audience of 1.5 million UK viewers, which again, we only get UK numbers because Disney is Disney, and I'm not even sure where the Australian numbers used to come from, but I do not know where to look that up.
I think the idea was the Australian numbers were purely, or at least some of the ones that we'd get also
It was just the major
involve,
cities, I know that.
yeah, and it would usually involve ABC iView, which doesn't get Doctor Who anymore, while the Disney Plus deal is a thing.
Got you. So there's no like is there no like physical broadcast on ABC of
I think there's
Doctor
still,
Who
I
anymore?
think there still is, but I guarantee that there's probably been a massive drop off due to the Disney Plus thing.
Mm. Yeah, that's
Mm.
fair. That's fair. Um so yes, so 1.5 million UK viewers. This is down by 0.36 million from the previous week, The Well, and down 0.8 million from Lux. By contrast, the previous Dr. Light story, 73 Yards, in last season at the same point of the season, actually had the most same-day viewers of any episode that season. In the 7-day four-screen ratings, The Well was watched by 3.23 million viewers, which is up from Lux, but not up by as much as the overnights were. So we had actually lost a few viewers in the 7-day, or some people watched it overnight that hadn't watched Lux overnight. This places Doctor Who as the 23rd most viewed program of the week in the UK, according to The Barb, or the 13th once programs with multiple episodes are consolidated. Any comments on the ratings?
I mean, it's about usual, I feel.
Yeah.
For
I feel
Doctor
like it's
Who.
been consistent. Yeah.
Yeah, because like, I
Yeah.
think like at the like early Chibnall era was the highest it had been in a good while.
Mm-hmm. I have seen people saying that like airing it in April and May, it just can't compete with other things. I don't know enough about, I mean, TV schedules in general, but especially UK ones, to really know what that means, like what things typically air at that time of year or not.
Yeah.
I've always been somebody who was super frustrated that the shows I liked waited until the start of the semester to start airing instead of airing over the summer when I was bored. But I guess like a lot of people, they touch this green wet stuff outdoors in the summertime. I don't go anywhere near that, especially not while it's hot. So in future episode news, we actually have a little bit of a breakdown on the Interstellar Song Contest. We don't need to be jumping around the trailer like we did last time. So I think it's scheduled to air on BBC One at 7:10 p.m. I think that's because of Eurovision airing the same day. They've probably shifted things around. And then we've got some photos here, which is mainly the Doctor and Belinda kind of showing up and seeing the event. I see a note saying events take an unexpected turn for Mrs. Flood. I'm not entirely sure where that comes from, unless it's because the entire audience seems to vanish and Mrs. Flood is in the audience. We have a list of cast members, which I remember when they used to put these online for every episode. This is kind of the first time in a while we've seen that. So I'm not going to just read off the whole thing, but if anybody sees anything there that stands out, feel free to mention it. And there's some facts and trivia. RTD warns fans to stay offline and watch the episode unspoiled, so maybe there's a twist. I remember that Juno Dawson said that this was like the most expensive Doctor Who episode ever.
Which I am curious, given some of the stuff we've had, I'm like, the hell is going to make this even more expensive?
Well, I mean, we had a Dr. Light episode, and we've had not quite a bottle episode, but as close as Doctor Who comes to a bottle episode now. Like, this was on midnight levels of bottle episode-ness. So maybe those are places where they've kind of cut and saved money.
I guess I'm noticing one of the trivia bits they say brings up that there's a sponsor in it with the name Poppy, which is related to both the episode we just watched and Space Babies, because one of the babies in that was named Poppy.
And the babies are also related to the episode we just watched.
Yeah. Which I'm no idea.
So
how
yeah,
that
actually,
works,
the fact that is something that was teased may suggest a direct through line from Space Babies to the Interstellar Song Contest.
Maybe.
Which would just be quite a wild decision. You take one of the least popular episodes of this Doctor's era, you connect it to one that you expect to be one of the biggest.
I mean, I guess the finale is called The Reality War, so I guess the idea could be that reality is kind of folding in on itself to where, we have something like happen in the episode we're going to talk about, and then a mention of a character from Space Babies for the next episode. So
the MCU canceled all the stuff with Kang and are not doing the big multiverse arc anymore. And instead, so maybe RTD was like, hey, multiverse, Kang, Loki. Yeah, I like this.
Yeah. I mean, at the same, it would also.
We haven't gotten there yet, but we do have a connection to Loki.
Yeah, I mean, we do. Generally, it wouldn't shock me, especially.
Oh, and the MCU. I forgot you mentioned the MCU.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Because we do have It would not really surprise me if, knowing how many episodes he had to work with, that Russell just went, hey, let's do a 2-season arc, effectively. Because, like, Mrs. Flood was introduced in, like, Church on Ruby Road, I think, and has been seen ever since. So, it's like, she keeps popping up. So, it's like, clearly he's had, we're doing, like, long-term stuff. But I'm assuming the idea is, I have to believe the idea is it's going to culminate in whatever the finale is. But we'll see, I guess. Although I do find it funny that there's a note here that, like, get ready for a darker, wilder, and tougher ride full of shocks and surprise than the title would suggest. So, which gives me, like, I guess it's them maybe trying to say, like, you would think
it's not literally Eurovision in space. There's a sci-fi element to it.
Or like, this isn't supposed to be. Which, to be honest, I would honestly kind of prefer a kind of Calm Before the Storm story, where this was more of a whimsical, like, farce than, like, super serious, etc. Because we're about to go into, like, because, like, next week is the, like, third last episode, I think.
Yeah, if you count the two-parter as two separate episodes, then yeah.
Yeah, so, like, you would think there would be, like, Calm Before the Storm and then the 2-part finale, unless the idea is that it's gonna serve as, like, sort of like how, like, there are people who treat Utopia as not part of a trilogy with the 2 episodes that come after it.
Which is objectively wrong.
Yeah. Where, like, maybe this will lead into the finale without being, like... But this will be more of a, like... There's lead-in, but it's not directly connected or something. I don't know.
Right.
Who knows?
I think it would be really nice. Like we see that there's some alien species in here. It's not all just humans. It would be really nice if we saw some like returning species from Classic Who.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have cats there, but they're not the cat kind that we see in New Earth.
Not the ones for New Earth is right. Yep.
Yeah. Like you could even have like, you know, yeah, you could have fucking oh god, who am I thinking of? Ice Warriors, which who got a mention technically. You could have
the Draconians are who I was thinking of.
Could have who am I thinking of? People from Peladon, or like
which I mean people from Peladon are basically humans, so that
yeah.
wouldn't like that would be like
well, you know,
the Well.
I guess, but they do have those like distinct, like I feel like they have distinct like maybe I'm
They
just
have a
thinking of the
distinct culture.
hair.
Nothing physical.
I mean the hair was always specific, at least. So
This would
the
be a
wigs were
great
pointed out.
opportunity for fucking Alpha Centauri to cameo.
Yeah.
Just saying.
or even if not Alpha Centauri specifically, just another being from the
Another
same
penis.
species. Because it's like it is weird that they're like literally the only one from that race that from that species that we've ever seen. Like, are they literally the only one? Or
Right.
like,
Why are they named after a galaxy?
because I guess if they're Alpha Centauri, then I guess the other one needs to be called like Omega something. Although we already have an Omega, so I guess they probably would avoid that. Epsilon something maybe. I don't know.
Funny thing though, I think I'm guessing that I don't know if Cultbox like put this together from a few different sources. I'm pretty sure this, unless I missed it, gives more information than the next episode trailer. Because I think the next episode trailer was like, wow, a stage, celebrities, music. What's going to happen? The end.
Yeah, like, it's basically a little bit of a tease, and then, oh shit, the Doctor looks like he's going to get sucked out into space. And that's about it.
Again?
Doesn't happen often enough.
All right. Moving on from there. We have our big finish, one release and one piece of news. So on the 7th of May, we have the Sixth Doctor Adventures of the Cosmos and Mrs. Clark, written by Paul Mars, Ian Potter, and Julian Richards, starring Colin Baker as the Doctor and Miranda Rayson as presumably the titular Constance Clark. And of course, I had to double check the cast after looking at the photo. We have Katie Manning as Iris Wildtime. Otherwise, in Big Finish news, each year in recognition of late crew member Paul Spragg, Big Finish holds a contest for readers to submit scripts for a short story to be made available as a free audio release. This year, the topic is any story featuring the 13th Doctor. Submissions are open until mid-June, with terms and additional information available on Big Finish's website. I used to tell myself every year that I was going to submit something to that. Now, especially the fact that it happens like in May to June, right when I'm coming off of a busy period, tells me I'm probably never actually going to write something that I would be willing to submit.
I mean, I mainly remember thinking, like, if I actually had the the ability to focus long enough. I remember last year theirs was like something about the Time War, and my pitch was basically do something involving the Rani. Because it could do weird war crime science experiment shit.
Yeah.
This, I would base, like, my pitch is just do something where Yaz is the focus, because it's a short trip, so, like, it's usually companion stuff. So, like, something like that would be nice, given how, like, ultimately little focus she really got.
And yeah, I did. I looked briefly at the terms because I was like, oh, I didn't realize there were terms. Let me see what they said. And they did mention like any of the 13th Doctor's canonical companions can be included, but you can't use any other companions or any other Doctor Who characters or make up a fake companion. So you could write a 13th Doctor and Yaz story. But I will say I didn't write this in my notes, but I thought about mentioning it, and since it's coming up. Obviously, the canon story of the 13th Doctor means none of your steamy AO3 fics are going to actually qualify as being, the canonical 13th Doctor, so those are not eligible for submission. With that, we have one item for Geek Talk, Critical Role Campaign 3, which apparently ran for 5 years.
Which, to be fair, part of that was a matter of, like, I think they had a much briefer, like, I don't think initially when they got into it they were doing episodes as much, because it was like their first thing coming out of COVID. Because they had actively stopped for a while because they took COVID seriously, thankfully. And I think from then on, and like, yeah, I think there was also a thing of eventually, like, they were never doing anything live, and I think they figured that they might go back to doing live streams in terms of airing it. So like actually doing the episodes live as streams, and then eventually they just decided, no, we're just doing pre-taped from now on, because it gives us, which I guess is a matter of, like, it gives us more control. We don't have to worry about chat, like what chat's saying while we're trying to do this. Like, occasionally it would help because someone in chat would remind them of, like, something they forgot about, and, like, oh yeah, I can do this or whatever. But it was like, I forget how long it was into the campaign before they finally started, like, actually being back at a table, like all sitting at the same table like they used to, instead of being in, like, little separate little stations, like God knows how far away from each other for COVID reasons. But yeah, like, this is interesting because this campaign, like, I was up to date with it up to a point, and then now I can basically just blame it on ADHD, but but I kind of fell off after a bit, and it wasn't because I wasn't enjoying it. It just happens with me that I kind of fell off it after a while, and got back into it, caught up a bit more, then took another break, then basically plowed through. Like, I plowed through, like, I was up to, like, I was either 60 or 70 or 80 ish episodes in, and then plowed through the rest of the way through to 121 over the course of, like, the last couple months, and in some cases knocking out some in a day. But I think the final one, the final episode, is like over 8 hours. So either I only watched that on a day off in one go, or I watched like half of it, stopped, came back to finish it off the next day. And this is like, technically that's also including all the ads at the front, and then they have an intermission at varying points sometimes. But yeah, like it kind of bugs me that some people like write this campaign off, who like are Critical Role fans, because they're just like, these characters didn't grab me. And like, while I can kind of get it, like things like this, you kind of have to stick with it if you're gonna like. I can get dropping off it because it's like, okay, it's just not pulling me in, and this is quite a time sink. But even then, like, because like some of the characters you get introduced to in one of their little spin-off thingies, their first Exandria Unlimited, which was a 4-part thing, so like 4 sessions instead of a 1-shot. And you get introduced to like 3 of the characters in the main cast through that. And 2 other people that kind of show up. But yeah, it's kind of interesting because like the closer I get to the end, you get basically, this is an end of an era campaign, because this was like this finished in their 10th year of doing this. Because I forget when they started, because at the very least, like, we're technically in year 10 now, I think it is. Because it might have been like from 2014, the 10th anniversary technically might have been last year, but I don't remember exactly when. And as they bring up, they're like, technically they were doing this for like just on their own as a home campaign, the original campaign anyway. They'd been doing for like 3 years prior. But yeah, I genuinely enjoy all these characters. All these actors are great. I won't say who, but there is one permadeath in this. And if you figure out who it is, you'll kind of get why. But yeah, surprisingly, only one. Like, they come close. I'll say, like, I won't go into detail, but they come close.
I'm
to
glad
like,
I didn't say anything.
Yeah, like they come close to a TPK at least once or twice. But they managed to like narrowly survive it. But yeah, like I feel like I like these characters quite a bit, because like the theme for this, without them even really intending to do it by the sounds of it, was like, these are basically just the outcasts. Like, I think even one of them, Talus and Jaffe, has described this cast of characters as basically being like, these people would all be NPCs in other campaigns. is the way he put it, which honestly might be why some people will put off, because it's like, well, these don't feel like main characters, when that seems to have been indirectly kind of the point without them realizing it. And it kind of makes it more interesting, makes them easier to relate to, I guess, as characters. Yeah, like, it'll be interesting to see what they do with this, in terms of how this ends, because this really is like, whatever they do moving forward, I kind of hope there's a massive time skip, because this basically was like the end of kind of a trilogy of campaigns, and that's the way they handle it. This probably, they knew that this campaign was probably going to end around the 10-year anniversary, so they're like, okay, we're going to wrap all these campaigns into one kinda towards the end, to like be a bit of a celebration of what we've been doing up to this point. And then it'll be like this starting fresh kinda, which I'm assuming it's gonna still all be set in the same world. But my hope would be is like we shift far enough ahead that like there's some distance, because there's usually like there is distance to a point. Like by the time we see cameos from like campaign 1 characters, they are like getting up there in age. So this is like decades at this point have passed since the end of the first campaign. But yeah, it's like I would love if they did like if they jumped like 100 years in the future for campaign 4, which I don't know if they've said what they're gonna do. I mean, it would be interesting if they look, because they have their own TTRPG system now, Daggerheart. I'm curious if they're gonna jump over to that for the next campaign, or if to keep it simple, they're just gonna keep. If they're just gonna stick with D&D, which is kind of funny because like in one of the in one of the last episodes, there's a bit where like they're not so much arguing, but they're having a bit of a debate over how a specific spell works, and then someone's like, "Oh, they up." It's like, "Oh, for some reason yours took the like 2024 update." Version of that spell instead of the like legacy 5e version of it. So they were like, wait, that spell shouldn't be able to do that. Oh, it's the updated version of it. And it was like, well, it's a useless spell anyway, so I'll let you do that. Or like, you know, and it's kind of funny because I think I'm pretty sure they still have D&D Beyond as a sponsor. Maybe they don't. But it is kind of funny how like they'll also openly rag on D&D Beyond when it doesn't work. Because there's like several times where the little tablets they all have to be able to use it all kind of go to shit themselves. And they're like, God damn it, this website's not working. That's kind of hilarious. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where we go from here, and if Robbie Raymond, who like kind of became like he starts with them, then leaves, and then comes back for like the last big chunk. And I'm curious if he's going to become a regular cast member starting with the next main campaign, and like the cast will just fully go back up to 8 again, because it's basically just been 7 with occasional guest people after one of the people left early on and will likely never come back because of drama that I don't want to go into. But yeah, because like Robbie Raymond was a nice fit, so I really do hope that, schedule permitting, because they are all actors, that he sticks around as a main cast member. Because yeah, they also, because they pre-tape now, and I think they also do it every 2 weeks instead of every week. So, which probably means that like maybe they film in their off week or something, and maybe they like bank a couple ahead of time or something like that, depending on what's coming up. But yeah, because I know apparently people were like, wait a minute, this episode's airing and they're at the Game Awards or something. It's like, yeah, because they pre-taped it. Yeah, if you have the time to sink into this, because again, there's 121 episodes. Episodes are about 4 hours each. If you have
if you about 500 hours.
Yeah, like if you have the time, there's that. However, they also do an abridged thing where it's basically the highlights. So it's about, which are about like I'd have to check, but I think they're like an hour or less. So it's basically just, here's the highlights of this episode. So you don't have to sit through all 4 hours if you don't have time. And I think in some cases I don't know if they still do it, but they did have a thing called Critical Recap where they would basically just be like, here's a quick summary of what happened to catch you up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, God knows I've probably gone well over 5 minutes, so I'll just leave it there. But yeah, if there's a way, like, push comes to shove, an animated show will eventually happen, I would assume, so you could always wait for that because that will absolutely trim things down a lot by virtue of being a show rather than 4 hours of having to describe everything happening.
Yeah. That, and yeah, shows tend to edit things. If there's 500 hours of material, they are not going to air at all.
Yeah. Because, yeah, like, a lot of that is really just, having to describe everything and then have conversations instead of with a show. You can just, the visuals are there so you don't need to.
I usually listen to Critical Role on audio, so I stopped at around episode 26 of Campaign 2, so plan on picking it back up. Don't know when, though. Yeah, but I heard of some changes in Campaign 3 without going into further detail. I'm glad I didn't say anything, so.
Went to update the summary color and I accidentally turned it to Aaron. I'm like, wait a second. Pretty sure it's supposed to be Alex today. But we never actually communicated that, but I think you mentioned taking notes for it or something.
Because I remembered that I was supposed to do it last week, but I wasn't here, so
yeah,
assumed that would have been bumped to now. So let's see. What was I grabbing? Oh, no, wait. I don't really need the stopwatch because I'm not going to be timing myself.
Well, I mean, you are on Twitch.
So let's see.
Oh.
I guess I'll go to that then. So I guess if anyone wants to give me a countdown.
Okay. Sure. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so we open on a man called Omo telling a story about how he met the doctor, only for alarms to go off after the fact, and some of the other patrons of the barber shop saying they need the doctor to come to them. We then cut to the doctor and Belinda landing in Lagos, Nigeria in 2019, so the time period this is set. As the doctor wants to visit Omo's palace, a barber shop that he'd taken a liking to. Belinda stays in the TARDIS at first as the doctor goes there, walking past missing persons signs and one or more turn back / stay away type signs. After getting into the barber shop, the doctor realizes only too late what he's walked into, as Omo explains the shop is under new management. After seeing someone else tell a story while getting their hair cut, the doctor opts to do it as well, telling a story about how Belinda managed to save a woman's life, which seems to power up a mysterious engine in this place quite a lot, according to a woman the doctor can't quite place at first. After having quite enough of all the alarms going off on the TARDIS and being unsure what to do, Belinda goes out after the doctor, randomly seeing one of the kids from Space Babies for no apparent reason, before getting there. Once Belinda gets into the barber shop, it's made clear that the woman working for the mysterious barber is Abena, the daughter of Anansi, who holds a grudge against the doctor for abandoning her in the past, seemingly as far back as the fugitive doctor, who gets a cameo appearance. The barber tries to claim that he is in fact Anansi, with claiming to be several other gods of myth and folklore, before the Doctor and Belinda laugh it off, and that forces him to reveal that he's instead the one responsible for the recording of their stories that passed into myth and folklore, and that all he wanted was recognition for his work, only to be cast aside once the nexus that he made could power itself, the idea being that he's seeking revenge. Wanting to kill all of the storyteller gods and take their place, which Abina wasn't aware of until now, assuming he wanted to just usurp them without necessarily killing them. Abina tells a story of her own after they try to force the Doctor to tell another one to satiate the machine while doing the Doctor's hair into cornrows, relating it to the story she tells of African slaves doing this to help others escape to freedom by effectively giving them a map in their hair to follow. Realizing what Abina's doing, the Doctor disrupts the barbershop and manages to get into the maze-like area that eventually leads him and Belinda to the story engine, which at first glance seems to be a gigantic brain with a mechanical heart in it. The barber catches up to them, and despite Belinda pulling some wires out at the Doctor's behest, the barber claims they haven't really affected anything. Ultimately, the Doctor gives one final story, I'm born, I die, I'm born, I die, which overloads the story engine as it imparts his entire life history into it, giving the barber the choice to let everyone out or they'll all die together as the engine will just explode. To which the barber relents. Everyone gets out, including the barber, after the Doctor refuses to let him stay there and die. The Nigerian men all thank the Doctor and Abina and leave, while Omar leaves the barbershop to the barber, allowing him to use Omar's father's name, which, for the life of me, I've forgotten and couldn't find the spelling for anywhere. The Doctor and Belinda say their goodbyes to Abina and the barber before leaving in the TARDIS as the Doctor starts to tell a story to Belinda about Omar. The end.
So from when you said the second word, I think it was so, until you said the end, 4 minutes, 11.6 seconds. Plus adjustments for reaction time.
I was going to say seemingly I've got 4:14, so I might have been 3 seconds off. Mind
so
you,
I know, like,
I probably
you did, like, there was a very
then...
brief amount of, there was like a multi-second like filler word as you were like finding your place, but I didn't hit start until after that. I don't know if you did.
Yeah, probably because I had to like start it and then pull up my notes. I like there's probably why there's an extra 3 seconds on there.
Also, even though you're representing the version of the story the Doctor wants us to believe is true, the Doctor, despite saying 6 words, the last 2 words were I am born and not I'm born. So it was actually 7 words. The Doctor cannot count. So I did never mind. The update's not that important anymore. But I had crossed out behind the scenes and not expected to talk about any behind the scenes. But I did find something that I think is really worth talking about, and maybe this was in like the BBC's behind the scenes video, but since we're like, I'm watching it at 6 p.m. to get ready to stream at 10 p.m. I don't have time to be watching behind the scenes videos that are half an hour long. But I did find, I was looking up this author, the writer of this episode, because I wanted to know, like, how unique is this episode in terms of authenticity? So I did find one. This is the first Black man to write for Doctor Who, and the 4th Black writer overall. Good, but we need more. I did think we needed, we needed somebody with some experience to be writing a story about Nigeria, given especially the UK's history and many other countries' histories.
Yeah.
But this really stood out to me. Like, I wouldn't have necessarily mentioned that on its own. But apparently, as part of as research for a play called Barbershop Chronicles, Inua Elums recorded 60 hours of banter in barbershops all over Africa and in London, like black barbershops, in order to prepare for for writing this play, Barbershop Chronicles, that was set in 6 cities during a football match and discussing social issues. And it's very clear, like, this is a particular episode. I think it was important for it to be written by somebody who has some sort of knowledge or research or something. And I mean, Nigerian-born British writer, he probably has personal experience relevant to this episode. But this shows he put a lot of research into the topic of barbershops, and he, decided to make use of it. And I think that was a really good idea.
Yeah.
I knew, like, I have my basic knowledge, like, as a white person who typically, like, went to a salon in the mall with my mother, I don't know a lot about black barbershops. I know them from, like, Eddie Murphy movies and things like that. So I know that they're culturally very important and that it's not something you want to fuck up if you're, say, a white writer like Russell T. Davies or myself. But it's very clear Inua Elums not only, is within the demographics that, would be expected to have this knowledge, but also very clearly, did the research to be authentic in this portrayal.
Yeah, it's like how, it'd be like if Chibnall had fully written either Rosa or Demons of the Punjab. Like, that would have been really, dude, what? Because I'm pretty sure he, like, I think he co-wrote both of those, or at least one of them. He at least co-wrote, like, Demons of the Punjab, I think.
At least wrote, like, just the companion storyline parts of them, I think, yeah.
But yeah, like, Demons of the Punjab, if that had been fully written by a white writer, I would have been being like,
At minimum, I would want it to be a white writer that had a lot of research about the partition and such.
Yeah. Whereas I feel like it would not shock me if, like, all Chibnall's stuff for that was just like, well, I guess we'll put some aliens in here or something.
But yeah, I mean, and on that note, I do want to say, I do appreciate that the identity-related stories are being written by people of those identities.
Yeah.
I do not appreciate that those are the only episodes that people are being allowed to write. Like, if I were to go back, I mean, I feel like, especially with art, it's like it's all very close to the idea that RTD and Chibnall wrote all of these stories about that were not specifically about identity, and guest writers wrote everything else. It's not quite that strict, but it's too close for comfort.
I almost wonder
throw in Moffat as a third writer, who also wrote some of the non-identity stories. My point being, let people who are, of marginalized groups actually just be regular writers and not only write about identity, please.
Yeah. I mean, I think in some cases it's just a matter of the lack of them in the writers' rooms is why they're just like, well, if this is the only story I'm getting, then this is what I'm gonna do. Just so I get some representation in this show. Let's do a thing that hasn't been done in the show yet. Whereas if they were showing up in the writer's room more often, then yeah, you might get, like, literally the next episode is written by a trans woman, but it's Eurovision in
I was
space.
gonna say, the problem is my experience with Doctor Who has led me to think, this episode is going to have a major subplot about being trans, and that shouldn't be my reaction to seeing a trans woman's name in the credits. It just shouldn't.
Yeah.
But that's what Doctor Who has conditioned me to expect.
It's one of those things where, like, I guess it also depends on what the, like, as I said, it would depend on what the writers wanted to do. Like, if they, it wouldn't surprise me if it's a matter of, we've only got one episode, let's make it count. Whereas if they were being brought back for more stuff more often, which is kind of hard when you've only got 8 episodes at the moment. If they'd be like, yeah, sure, I'll write something like silly, like Eurovision in space or Space Babies or this, that, the other. But yeah, like, especially, I would generally hope that while we still have Shooty, that there would be more, like, you know, writers, like more black writers in here, so we can get more just like, you know, sci-fi from a different perspective kind of stuff, if nothing else. Like while I would honestly be fine with more stuff like this episode, even just being like, well, you know, rather than just homogenized white people idea of sci-fi, get more people from other cultures in that in, and get sci-fi
I
from
was
their
just thinking.
perspective.
I was just thinking. As much as like, it would be hilarious to watch the haters' reactions, but just like an Afrofuturism episode where they go to a culture and it's basically, you know, Wakanda in space. Obviously, like, file off the serial numbers. Don't make it seem super Earth. But I say don't make it seem super Earth. We've got in the USA in space. We've got in the UK in space.
Yeah.
Star Trek did fucking Nazi Germany in space. So if it was just Wakanda in space, we could live with it.
Yeah.
I feel like, yeah. So the behind the scenes went on a little bit of a tangent, but that's okay. Otherwise, so I put this under elements of Doctor Who. I wasn't sure if the alarms we were getting were meant to be a new version of the cloister bells, or if they were other alarms. And this, every time something like this comes up, I'm like, damn, I wish Rand were here, because he would know, like, every alarm that the TARDIS has ever had and be able to, like, break down and whether it was a new concept or not. I'm pretty sure the TARDIS has had alarms that were not the cloister bells, but they were usually like collision alerts and such.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with there being an alarm like the Doctor's in danger, which makes me think that this alarm is less about the Doctor being in danger and more about like the fabric of reality being in danger, which is why I think it's the cloister bell. I'm definitely interested in hearing what you two think, and as well as anyone in the Twitch chat or YouTube comments.
Yeah,
I think it's a new version of Cloister Bell because he seems really familiar with it. And he's like, "Oh, sorry, the alarms must have been really driving you nuts and stuff." And we hear the Cloister Bells actually go off quite frequently throughout New Who. And they were in like Fifth Doctor, I believe, right?
I
I'm
think they
pretty
were
sure they were.
introduced. I want to say they were introduced in Legopolis. I might. I think.
Okay.
I'm actually going to look
yeah,
that up, but I think Legopolis was the introduction.
Yeah, I don't think he was like. I think he seems kind of super casual about it. Like it's just like, of course they're going to go off because I just figured it was because he was in danger. But I could also see it because of reality and stuff. But they don't know that reality is in danger just yet, do they?
So the cloister bell is only supposed to go off if the TARDIS is in danger. So if it is the cloister bell, then that would imply that the story engine is doing something that puts reality at danger, pretty much. Not necessarily connected to the season plot in that way, but just that the story engine is doing something like that. Either that, or it's just a different alarm tied to the Doctor being in danger or something. I was right, by the way. Legopolis was the first appearance of the cloister bell, so a day before the Fifth Doctor.
Yeah, so I did like the wording I saw on like it's a fan wiki, so but it seemed to imply either the TARDIS itself or one of its inhabitants is in danger. Mind you, it goes off when the Doctor goes into the barbershop, but then it goes off when Abina enters it. So it's just that.
See that's why what I thought was happening was anytime they fucked with like the connection between the world and the alternate dimension or whatever pocket dimension or whatever it is that they happen to exist in at the moment.
Yeah.
That's what I thought it was. Which maybe it was causing some kind of ripple effect that put the time-space continuum in danger or something.
Yeah, like I guess the idea is it could be like it's supposed to be alarms for like something's wrong, but I don't know what. Like I know that the TARDIS knows that something fucked up's going on, but it doesn't know what, so it can't. It's not resorting to the cloister bell.
Right.
Yeah, I guess it could be a new alarm.
I really hope. Sorry, go ahead.
He just sounds familiar with it, but it hasn't turned up in any of the previous episodes, has it?
Yeah, I don't think
not
so.
this
For this
specific.
season,
yeah.
I should say.
Right. Not since we've gotten this
Or the
version of the
previous
TARDIS.
season?
Right.
Yeah.
Like I can't remember the TARDIS lighting up red like this either.
Yeah, I mean that was partial. I mean, it lit up in other colors. Yeah, the lighting up red is specific to this version of the TARDIS. What I really hope is not what happened, because the fandom wiki says or its inhabitants, which I'm pretty sure in context, knowing about the cloister bell, unless it's different in the novels, it actually physically means people who are inside the TARDIS being in danger.
Possibly, yeah.
But what I hope is not what happened is that Inua Ellums just kind of read this article real quick and was like, oh, the inhabitants, meaning the Doctor who is no longer physically in the TARDIS, and wrote the episode based on that, and then no script editor ever said anything. Or maybe that's why the word cloister bell is never used, because it was in an older draft and they said actually no.
Yeah. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if it was just like written as a generic alarms go off in the TARDIS, and RTD read that and went, well, it wouldn't be the cloister bell, so I guess we'll just do a new thing.
Yeah, that could be.
Or like the director.
Although I guess it would.
Knowing.
I was going to say probably wouldn't have been RTD unless he was. I mean, you never know how much your producer is involved in something like this. Obviously, the actual call should have been made by. Hold on a second, McCullough McPherson, who. Let me just happen to look up. Does she have it? There she is. This is her only Doctor Who credit, so I don't know. She has other like drama credits, but no other Doctor Who ones, so I don't know much about her. Although it is relevant, I haven't seen anything saying how many black directors Doctor Who has had. But this is very clearly a black woman. I don't know anything about her. I'm just looking at her photo and the fact that this is her only Doctor Who credit. Which has been probably a good idea for this particular episode.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts about the alarms or the cloister bell?
Not really.
I didn't really go in pecking order, but I just started with a question, so I guess not super relevant needed.
Yeah, I'm looking at TARDIS wiki and it doesn't really. It just calls it an alarm. It doesn't really say that it's a cloister bell or anything.
And I guess the other thing is the wiki also seemed to mention that the cloister bell is mainly like extreme danger, so maybe that's why it was new alarms instead of the cloister bell, because cloister bell is usually like someone's gonna die, whereas there wasn't like the imminent threat of death necessarily, I guess. Maybe so I could have. That's
part of why I'm curious.
Yeah,
because if it's the cloister bell, then that implies that what the doctor, the barber was doing was so problematic that the Earth was at risk of blowing up,
Yeah.
and that would have triggered the cloister bells.
Mm.
But if it's not the cloister bell, then that isn't really. You don't need to draw that sort of conclusion.
Yeah, and I guess you could also say it's a matter of like maybe even just Russell being like, we used the cloister bell a lot last season. Let's like give it a break. Because I feel like it came up a lot because like and tied it into the Sutex stuff. So...
Oh, you're right. So
that's right.
It sounded like a normal bell then, right? With no red lights.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the normal one.
Okay. So this is not the cloister. I was thinking we hadn't gotten the cloister bell since the TARDIS regenerated, but you're right. We did get it during the Sutex stuff.
Yeah. So I think it's like
so it's a new alarm then, but not the cloister bell.
So it wouldn't shock me if it is a matter of like Russell just going, you know what? I think we've overused a cloister bell last season. Let's like give it a break.
Yeah, or it could have been a situation of they were like, yeah, this situation doesn't really merit the cloister bell, so we're gonna make that slight adjustment. It was definitely a memorable effect, I'll say, at least enough that I felt like it was important enough that we should have known about it.
Yeah.
Okay. So on that note, our regular review, what we liked about the episode, and my coin landed on heads, which means we default to the letter A. So Alex goes first.
There's a few things to choose from here. I guess it's pretty broad strokes. But I guess and it's something I don't think I immediately appreciated, and it was more something that I was just like, it only occurred to me as the episode was almost over, of like, oh yeah. But the fact that this is easily like far and away outside of like maybe, funnily enough, Demons of the Punjab, the most POC heavy story Doctor Who's ever done. Because like Demons of the Punjab, the only white person I think in that is Graham, and that's it. In this, the only white people are not main focus. Like, all of the characters that are main focus and majority of the background extras are either black people or Belinda.
Yeah, I think the only white people, at least with speaking lines, would have been the ones in the Doctor's story about Belinda.
Yeah, that and the file footage of the previous Doctors, basically.
Oh yeah.
So like, yeah, it was like that. I think
they're black. They're black. They get the black card for today, for these 2 years or hopefully more years.
But yeah, it was just interesting realizing, oh yeah, like it took them 62 years, but they are by virtue of the fact that we have a black Doctor and a POC companion.
Yeah, because Rosa was predominantly white, right?
Yeah. Like there was like it fit the story in that way, because it's like it's exploring the prejudice of the time period, so it fit. Whereas this isn't. And it's set in Nigeria, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like having a bunch of,
although it is also, there is the fact that it's in Nigeria. I mean, maybe this wasn't necessarily the prompt and was just how it was written, but based on the beginning of the episode, it's set in Nigeria specifically because of the prejudice of, well, various days.
Well, yeah. Yeah, given the which. Yeah. Yeah, it's nice. Like, it's nice to have something like this. Like if you're gonna do it, especially now's the time to do it. It's like we have a black doctor play into it a bit. So
like on one hand, this also would have been like would be a good era to have like, yeah, the doctor just has an adventure in Nigeria and nobody looks oddly at him.
Yeah.
Which is the only time that could have been true. That could have been enough, but I mean, having a story that also puts that front and center also definitely has its place as well.
Because
it's kind of neat because they found lost episodes in Nigeria, which means it was broadcast there at some point. So
Which
this is
means
like,
it was probably a British colony. Now that you say that,
yeah, in the 60s, the 1967 serial was found there, and that means that finally people living in Nigeria get to see a doctor that resembles them.
yeah, true. Yep, it was controlled by Britain from the mid 19th century until August 1st, 1960.
Which I guess if this episode had been straight up more like Demons of the Punjab, the episode would have been commentary on that.
Right.
Whereas instead it's not. Which I'm fine with.
Yeah.
Like we can do that eventually. Because honestly that would just be funny to see the right-wing UK tabloids
And I mean,
pissy.
I think South Africa, there's probably lots of stories in lots of places, but in terms of what I know about African history, if you're going to do a story about a South African country's independence and their struggles, South Africa's probably the one.
Yeah.
But there probably are stories in Nigeria that I've never even heard hints of, so.
Yeah.
So what we liked was, sorry, what was it? What was the main thing that you liked again?
Basically just basically just the casting, I guess. Like the fact that this is a story centered around people who aren't white. Like the majority of the characters.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Okay.
all of the characters were speaking roles outside of the flashback Belinda thing. Basically all the characters the story actually focuses on are either black or Belinda. And so this is like the only story I think Doctor Who's ever done where that's pretty much the case. Because again, Demons of the Punjab is close, but the only reason it loses out in that case is just because Graham is a main character.
Right.
So it's like it's up there in terms of that kind of representation.
And in this case, the sci-fi fantasy element is explicitly African, which was not the case, I think, in Demons of the Punjab. Like, I mean, they were aliens. I don't think there was anything particularly South Asian about them. I could be wrong. I don't know if they were inspired by anything. I don't think there was.
I guess it would depend on whether those were a Chibnall edition or not, given he co-wrote it.
I mean, I hope that wasn't a Chibnall edition because sci-fi is not his strength. His strength is modern day drama. All right, Erin, what did you like about this episode?
I liked all the different commentary that was kind of just pushed into this. I wouldn't say shoehorn, but slid into this serial. We've got commentary on women's independence between Abby and Belinda, where Belinda insists that she told the doctor to go and have a fun time instead of being told to stay and wait for him. We've also got we've got mentions of homeless population and how they can be othered, and how people without family are othered. Basically, themes of otherness and kind of pushing people to the outside like that when we should be kind of taking care of them within our community. Theft of IP by other powerful interests.
Yeah.
Artists kind of also, just wanting to get credit for their work. And the connection of artists to their creation, and as well as their audience. So that's the whole main backbone, is like, if you get rid of the creation, then the people who watch the creation will no longer be inspired, and then the creator themselves won't really have a purpose anymore. So
Right.
It was a joke that like
So
I sort of had the thought while watching it, is that he was annoyed that he was working for exposure, and this is the joke that occurred to
Didn't
me
even
just
get
now. It's
exposure.
like, yeah, it's like, oh yeah, well there you go. So it's like, this is what happens when someone is like, this is what happens when someone not only does not get paid or recognized for their work, but they don't even get like the exposure or anything. They're just
like the bare minimum.
Yeah.
I wonder, now that you say that, I wonder if this, and by the way, this is one of the reasons why you don't always do one-to-one allegory. I wonder if this episode is an AI reference. Because you have the whole thing about people's writing and their art and their voices being stolen by AI, to the point where, okay, we don't need the original creator anymore. The machine, the story engine runs on its own. We'll just continue creating work representative of you, and we don't need to give you credit because you're no longer involved in the process.
Yeah. So I guess to that end, it's like someone deciding, oh yeah, I'll put my work into a generative AI thingy. Oh crap, my hubris.
I just realized something. If the story engine is generative AI and he put a quote from Ernest Hemingway into it, and Ernest Hemingway committed suicide, isn't he just kind of basically programming the story engine to blow itself up?
I think a lot of creators have committed suicide. And granted, I was just partially including people who OD'd in my head, which a lot of those were not intentional. Some of them might have been, but not all of them.
Yeah, I believe Hemingway actually shot himself. So,
of
course,
I
that's
think
not
isn't there a rock
destroyed the
star
machine,
famous for
but...
shooting himself too?
Kurt
Oh yeah,
Cobain, you mean?
Kurt Cobain.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of musicians. I mean, the 27 Club is a thing for a reason.
Yeah.
But it's just the fact that he quoted an artist or a writer who had, destroyed himself. So, I mean, he could have quoted anybody, really.
But yeah, I like this analysis. I've looked whenever I'm doing the title card, and whenever I'm posting we're live now, I always look a little bit at the Twitter conversation. And so far I've seen things about individual scenes, things about Doctor Who lore, and of course you can't escape the racial, cultural, ethnic, colonial implications of the episode. But I haven't seen anyone talking about the IP stuff. But that's really that's what, that's the motivation of the villain of the episode or the antagonist of the episode. It is really relevant and worthy of analysis. So,
which I guess
that's a really great perspective.
Which I guess even to that point, you could technically say that without directly confronting it, that could also relate to, kind of white people profiting off black art, by virtue of the fact that this is a black man who's they basically took my work and said, yeah, fuck you, we're gonna do this without you now. And it's like, how many stories do we get and mainstream stuff that's clearly inspired by like art and that being made by other cultures, that why people are like, I'm gonna cherry pick these things without necessarily getting the full thing of it. I just like the aesthetic of it and then running with it and getting rich, whereas the people that they might have been pinching from are like scraping by potentially, or just not as renowned or whatever as these people have gone, ooh, I'll do a movie set in there.
I mean, you could look at the gods that he cites. He does cites Anansi, which could be a reference to just, I don't know, possibly other black cultures stealing from each other, or maybe just internalized racism, where like maybe a poorer black artist creates something that's really unique, but then a more wealthy black man sees it, or black person sees it, and like just takes it for themselves because they feel like the other person can't defend their art or can't defend themselves from the art theft. You've got
it
also
is
gods that
interesting
are.
that he does kind of mention, like, if you were to separate Egypt, because Egypt, I mean, one had a lot of ties to Europe and and everything else. If you were to separate Egypt and just look at like sub-Saharan Africa, I think he names all the gods that the typical like white Westerner would know. So there could be an argument of, hey, there's this rich culture here, and it's all kind of these certain properties that are marketable get promoted, and these other ones that maybe are less marketable, or to the typical white Western audience are kind of go unnoticed. That's a possible take on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of makes me wonder about the whole Marvel reference being just beyond Disney. It's just like, well, Disney taps into these like mostly, marketable, like they make up an African nation, because I don't know how often they mention actual African nations in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But then a lot of Marvel Cinematic Universe is kind of white, except for the kung fu Asian stuff, which is interesting because you always hear people complain about diversity in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but how diverse is it actually?
I mean, the people who get like, this is a whole attempt, so I'm going to keep this brief, but it's like,
Yeah.
it's very like, the people who are going to complain about diversity in the MCU are just annoyed that it isn't 100% white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, 100% white, and then not also pissed that it's not 100% male.
Like, those are the same people that are like, Black Widow would never be able to beat a man in a fight because the man is heavier. And shut the fuck up. So I think what I was gonna say has not quite been taken, and I was just gonna say I like the references to like these real but somewhat subtle like references to black culture. And as an American, I never know until I see a story like this how universal certain things are. Like I didn't necessarily, I probably could have extrapolated that like black barbershops would be an important thing in England, at least in English cities. But I don't necessarily know that. I know that as an American culture thing. But so it was educational that way, but you also like you learn about like basically like the doctor kind of says, I experience minority stress in a lot of places. This is my safe space where I do not experience minority stress. You get, this experience of black barbershops, which is very similar to what, would be seen in African American media. You get the doctor kind of, really upset that his space of his safe space was kind of turned into a weapon against him because somebody kind of was valuing their own safety over his. and there are all sorts of like, analyses of like, is this out of character? Is it, well, if you look at, the racial dynamics that the Doctor explicitly mentions in the episode, it kind of explains it. So I would say this is 1,000 times better than something like Rosa. Unfortunately, modern politics are showing me that something like Rosa does exist a lot in, in people in power of like, oh, if I could just go back in time and stop the civil rights movement, America would be better. There are very clearly people with access to the White House who believe that. But I think these experiences that are much more frequent, much harder for the average white person to learn about, like seeing them in a story, but not be it wasn't like the story was, racism every 5 seconds. It had a through line, it had a story focusing on these other things, but it also included these experiences that I think need to be incorporated more into stories rather than only, the let me shoot Rosa Parks guy. So I think this story did splendidly in that regard.
And I
don't use that word very often. It was a very weird word for me to use, but it seemed the best one at the time.
No. And I guess because there's no other place I can really think to put it. And this kind of ties into what you're saying. Initially, at first, I was a bit thrown off by the Doctor being like, oh, it's hard to explain this thing I'm going through to a non-white woman. And then I'm like, well, this is the Doctor's first time.
But she didn't
being
used
white.
to be white. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's a matter of, it's complicated for him because he's not used to it, which I think I caught more on my second go through that I was like, that I thought about that as like, this is someone who this is a new experience. The same way the 13th Doctor was having to get used to, I used to be a commanding white man, so people would listen to me.
Right.
Now I'm white, but I'm a woman, so I'm gonna get a lot more people pushing back against me. And now we've got, yeah, he's a man now again, but is black this time. So there's going to be a lot more people who are going to disregard him regardless.
Yeah. I mean, we already had, they explicitly had an episode where like, it's illegal for us to be eating dinner right now.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like, it's that thing of like, oh yeah, for her, it's just, yeah, that's, that's my life. And he's like, oh, right. Yeah, this is new for me, but realize, and her having to point out, it's like, yeah, dude, that's just kind of how it is, unfortunately.
I feel like I was about to respond to something, but it seems to have slipped my mind. Or I was going to add something, and I don't remember what it was. So I guess hopefully it wasn't that important. What we disliked about the episode, starting with Alex.
I have basically nothing. So the one nitpick, and it's like, this is like really grasping at straws for something negative to say, is that I don't think I noticed the first time round, but the hair continuity on the barber after he cuts a bunch of it off is very inconsistent. It just magically ends up looking more like a modern, like, short hair hairdresser kind of a look by the end, but like there's weird in between where it changes a couple times and then settles on that, but it's always cut away, cut back, it's different. Cut away, cut back, it's different. And I caught that more in the second. Like, again, nitpickiest nitpick. Like, one of the biggest nitpicks I'll have ever made on here for just virtue of something to say. But it was just kind of like, because, like, the hair does grow back out and his just doesn't grow all the way back. It just kind of slowly starts to grow back. But just like I guess the fact that we don't see that happen and it keeps cutting back to him and his hair's different. That's like, well, that's a bit of a continuity flub there.
I don't know. I want to just kind of say, because I don't think it's going to fit into any of our regular categories. I really appreciate the captions, including names, at least sometimes.
Yeah.
Because as somebody who always is bad with faces and is like mixing people up, the fact that like normally I'd be like, oh yeah, this guy has a certain hair, and I recognize the shape of his face with his hair, and that's how I'm going to recognize his face. Obviously, if the hair is changing every 10 minutes, that is not a good strategy. So the fact that the clothing was very distinct and the captions included names really saved me from being like, I don't know who is which guy this is.
Yeah, like I'm kind of the opposite where like I'm decent with faces, it's names that I struggle with. So there were times where I was trying to think of like I know the face of who I mean, but I've only after I'd watched it once, I'm like I don't remember any of your names except Omo because the place that we're in right now is named after him. And the barber doesn't have a name, so he's just the barber. So
yeah. Erin, what do you dislike about this episode?
I had to really beat around to find anything that I really hated. Just kind of, I don't know. I almost kind of wanted this to be like a giant monster kind of story where they're actually on the back of an actual giant spider, and like the spider is using the barber as kind of an avatar or an extension of its body.
Okay.
And that, so
So like the
I almost
so like the barber being the mice from Hitchhiker's Guide, kind of.
yeah, kind of like, because just how sinister he comes off at first is like almost, it's just super alien and very kind of like, I really like that kind of feeling, but I feel like the more human they make him, the less impactful he is and the less interested I am in him as a villain.
Okay.
So,
so
and in
basically,
fact, Abby kind of steps in and becomes a little bit more interesting because she's like encouraging him and everything and trying to keep him strong and stuff. So, but yeah, I kind of wish that he was just kind of this standalone, like not human, not even really human like thing that they had to fight. That was an extension of this giant monster that had like swallowed them, and the doctor had to find a way to like get them out, like
Okay.
have the giant monster spit them out or something like that.
so pretty much you were of the mind that I've seen some people be, that they were kind of disappointed that he wasn't just straight up a Nazi and that was a misdirect.
Yeah, kind of. I guess I was hoping that he would actually be a Nazi or like some like alien, truly alien being, and not just someone who was once human. I understand why they did it because he becomes, that's the only way that they can communicate with him to um get their point across. I mean, just like with the whole idea of forgiveness and like allowing people a second chance and stuff like that too. It'd be a lot harder to do that with like an actual monster. So, and also the idea of that kind of very human creativity that's driving the main purpose of the plot too. So, which is, if you strip all of that away, then you're going to strip away most of the plot anyway. So,
Right.
hmm
So
I
Oh, sorry. Did you have something more?
No, I was just finishing
Okay.
up.
Okay. So I almost was going to go with how the doctor acts toward Omo because I didn't really understand why the doctor even felt that Omo had done anything. But I think over thinking about the scene a bit more, I understand it a little bit more how Omo was basically like, yeah, if the doctor will come and we'll plug him into the chair and the rest of us will all be safe. Uh, so I can kind of understand that a little bit more than I did at first, and maybe that's something that a second viewing might have helped with. So what I'm really gonna say, and this is probably a very pedantic one, but that kind of just shows it's a pretty good episode. So you have to kind of step back to see flaws in it. In the context of the season, it's really weird because on one hand, Doctor Who has always had a weird relationship with gods. Their nature kind of changed episode to episode or god to god. Sutek was an alien. This is saying like these gods were created, these were like almost like Apollo from Star Trek, where these are legit gods that are powered by faith. And that's kind of fine until you remember, like, we're in the midst of a season where we're saying like a lot of gods are either hostile entities or these like weird forces that are aligned with extra universal entities, and they have these harbingers who may be human or maybe other things. What we're really doing, the barber, in every way he describes himself, he is a harbinger. But he doesn't interact with the story in the way that the harbingers do in the other episodes about the Chaos God. So I think that is kind of an inconsistency. I'm not going to say plot hole. I'm not going to even say flaw. It's an inconsistency in the way that gods and their harbingers are dealt with within the confines of this 2-season arc. All right, favorite scenes, Alex.
Ooh, I've been floating around on trying to figure out which I'd go with. So I think for now I'll just go with uh at the end, Omar giving the barbershop over to for lack of another name to call him because I forget what Omar's
It's
father's name
Ereto
was.
Kunbo.
That's it, yeah.
Ereto Kunbo. That's what TARDIS Wiki says.
Because like when I checked that a few hours ago, it didn't have a listing. So I was like, damn
Yeah,
it.
it seems like it's pretty filled out right now.
Neither was Wiki.
Somebody hopped on that quickly then.
Yeah. Cause yeah, like that whole scene where he's like, hey, you can use my dad's name, just take the business, I want to retire now anyway. And just like especially the barber's reaction, just like the genuine thing of not being able to comprehend how after putting this guy through hell, he's willing to be this kind. Of just like flat out saying that he doesn't deserve this kindness is like, I feel like some people might think that kind of response is a bit too on the nose, but like, this is a guy who's lived for God knows how long. And, as it comes up with Belinda and Abinaz, like, hurt people. So, this is a guy who's effectively had been taking out his frustration on these guys. And the fact that he's effectively willing to let that hate go and be like, here you go.
That was something when I saw that I was trying to remember, it was like, how has the cycle of abuse been something that's been brought up in other contexts, either in this episode or in the season? Because that seemed like an interesting thing to include, and typically something like that is going to be frequently, it's going to recur, but it's something that I had not been looking for before, so it made me wonder. By the way, I do want to mention, since we were talking about TARDIS Wiki and such, I don't know like how tapped in you are to like discussions about like fandom.com and it having like possibly unethical or at least problematic business practices ranging from excessive ads to completely rewriting articles for profit and other problems that other people than me know more about, that I've kind of just mostly seen other people talk about. Well, as of this week, I hadn't seen this before, so I think this is new. It looks like there is now there's now a TARDIS.wiki as a separate wiki, as a separate wiki. It doesn't look like it's being edited by the same people, because their page about the story and the engine is has a completely different summary and completely different language compared to the one on fandom.com. But this may be a good site to start using. It seems like this is it seems like a lot of wikis are doing that to move away from fandom, which, and I'll admit, like ever since its name changed from wikia.net to fandom.com, the quality has gone downhill. So I'm not here to make a big statement. I'm not here to like claim I know a lot about fandom and their practices or not, but I know that this is a thing in fandom communities in general. So I wanted to call attention to it.
I have been reading off of the TARDIS wiki that says "Welcome to the independent TARDIS wiki." So, and then it asks for a little bit of money and such. So I don't think I'm on the fandom version of it.
Right. Yeah,
It's
unfortunately, they're both called TARDIS
TARDIS.wiki/wiki.
Wiki. They're both, because the original one, it used to be called the TARDIS Index File, then it became the TARDIS Data Core, and then it just became the TARDIS Wiki because it was tardis.fandom.com. And then now here we have the TARDIS Wiki Independent, so they're both called TARDIS Wiki, but this one, the actual URL is tardis.wiki.
Yep, that's the one that I'm on. TARDIS.wiki/wiki.
Yeah. So I may dig into it a little bit to kind of see like how much overlap there is between people running it, or if maybe a lot of I would not be shocked if a lot of people have kind of moved over from one to the other. But I'm not going to like distract from that by reading an article out loud to figure that out here. On that note, that was Alex's favorite scene, correct?
Yeah.
So now we're up to Aaron's favorite scene.
Okay, so I've got a few that I've written down. I think I'm gonna go ahead with the whole all I wanted was to be credited for my work, which is what the barber tells him. Tells the doctor. So
At the
as
very
they approach
end,
each other.
after he's
Towards
given up
at
his
the very
revenge scheme.
end.
Okay.
Yeah. Because that's where it first hit me, like, oh, this is about IP theft. At least for this character. So, like, you kind of get hints of it and stuff like that, but that kind of really nails it. So, yeah, because with the everyone kind of talking, because it almost without that line, you could almost say that, hey, his creations came to life and just became independent of themselves and whatnot. But like this, yeah, him talking about how he just wants to, be acknowledged is just, yeah, I think that's really what this is about.
Yeah, he had said that before, but like he was using it as justification for his revenge scheme. And here he was like, I didn't even really want revenge. I just wanted credit. So yeah, it kind of speaks to a few more themes in that moment than it does the first time. So I think I'm going to go with the scene where he's like, "Oh, I'm all these gods," and the doctor's like, "No, you're not. Quit lying." And then he's like, "Okay, here, here's the actual story. I'm kind of, the one that led them all to be their power, just because it kind of has a little of everything, right? You have this epic moment. You have this like, oh, is this where it's going to tie into the season plot? And then you have the doctor like, yeah, actually, not everything about the universe is new. Like, these gods already existed. We already, there are all these things that happened. Um, I wish more of what they referenced were related to things that happened on screen, but maybe these gods weren't really mentioned a lot on screen in the past, so that's fine. Um, and yeah, it's I mean, it's gonna be it does make it really weird with the whole like, oh, maybe Mrs. Flood is the god of stories. Well, if so, why is she not really relevant in this episode?
I mean, maybe
So
that's intentionally
I
why
hope
there's a
that's not a
misdirect.
further inconsistency. Yeah, I hope that's either intentional or unrelated in a good way.
Hmm.
But I thought that scene was just, it went through a lot of different moods. It was just really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Belinda and the doctor both laughing, like it kind of implies that, yeah, even though Belinda is really just trying to get back home, maybe she's maybe had some stories off screen, like she either that or she's just laughing because the doctor's laughing. Like she knows enough to know that there are gods out there, but also to trust the doctor. Um, so yeah, I thought the way the different beats of that scene were handled was really good.
Hmm.
Least favorite scenes, Alex.
Hmm. Uh, God, this is gonna be hard because I struggle to think of any particular scene. Like the most I would have had was ironically the one you gave as a a favorite, just because I'm like, wait, the Doctor met all these other entities off screen at some point. Like what? Um, because usually, especially like describing them all in the positive, when the Doctor runs into, I'm the basis for this being of myth or folklore, it's usually in a negative way. So it's funny to be like, oh yeah, I've
Well, I
totally.
mean, it did sort of imply there. I mean, there were definitely problems with his encounter with Anansi.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
some of it was like, oh yeah,
Hmm.
we tricked each other or something like that. So I
Hmm.
mean, it's positive in the sense of, oh yeah, I got out alive, and you're
Yeah,
clearly
yeah,
not
yeah.
that person, but
Hmm.
not always in the moment.
Yeah. More like I guess I mean like aside from that, most of them are just like, oh yeah, I got drunk with Dionysus and all that shit. So it's
Right.
like, and you know, given how sexual this version of the Doctor is, I can kind of figure very easily where things went with Loki. Um, but yeah, it's just like it seems a bit odd to, but like yeah, even that it's very nitpicky because it's just like usually when the Doctor encounters like a deity level entity, it's a bad thing. Like not always, but for the like 9 times out of 10, it tends to be like a bad time. So it's weird to bring up any experiences with, and especially some of those where I'm like, Dionysus? Really? Like, of all the entities, Doctor Who's going to be like, yeah, Dionysus is real. Like, feels a bit
Yeah,
odd.
that could be a little problematic.
Oh, like, I even just mean from a case of like, how does that work? So like, some alien, because like, let's face it, when an when an entity is explained in Doctor Who, it's usually an alien that came to Earth. So I'm thinking, so what? This alien showed up and decided, yeah, I'm just gonna get drunk and be known for that, and among other things. But you know, but also just like, you know, like it's weird. Like, and some of those, I guess, make a bit more sense because, like, I feel like I've heard people describe the Norse mythology as being less Greek god level and more, you know, they can die and all this and that, but you know,
On that, like in other Doctor Who story, like you could say, okay, given the origin of like the Greek gods and how they were like, they originated with the like people that were already ancient history by the time the Greeks started writing. You could say, oh yeah, there was just a king who happened to get drunk and throw parties every day for 40 nights and then died of alcohol poisoning, and his name was Dionysus, and they started to tell stories about him.
right.
But in this episode, that doesn't really work because they're implying that they're all, you know, they all have that like Apollo relationship of like, yeah, their followers keep them alive, and that is a new thing, I think, for Doctor Who.
Yeah, that has to
If
be.
it has been, if it's not new, it's something Big Finish has, because Big Finish had their whole Gods arc, and I haven't listened to any of those stories yet.
And of course, we've got like what, 2 or 3 explanations for Satan at this point because we've got, you know, the Impossible Planet, Satan's Pit, and the demons in the Third Doctor era, where that entity claims to be responsible for I mean, several things: the destruction of Atlantis and just like the human conception of the devil. Like, so it's like usually that's what they do. So it's weird to be like, no, these totally exist now. I mean, I guess I would half wonder if that's just RTD still playing into the toy maker coming back kind of messed with reality to where now that's the case as opposed to not previous. Like, who knows? But yeah, even as I said before, though, like going into that, it's more of like a, well, that just seems a bit weird, rather than like, oh, this ruined the episode for me or anything.
Yeah. All right, how about you, Aaron?
Okay. So least favorite scene we're on.
Yep.
I'm gonna go ahead. The police officer trying to stop Belinda, which I thought it was going to go somewhere where it made it so Belinda couldn't join him in the barber shop, but then it kind of didn't.
Yeah,
It just
that.
kind of showed her being kind of the outsider, and like I really thought that something was actually going to come from an actual police officer trying to stop her.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was weird. That does just kind of happen, and then
Mm-hmm.
she just shows up at the barbershop anyway.
Yeah, I didn't even
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even register that it was a police officer, because the only voice that was like, she was going through this crowded place, the only voice that was loud enough that I heard could make out what they were saying was like, I'll give you a discount. And so like I didn't even
Mm-hmm.
hear that there was a police officer.
Yeah, it's like
Um
it's yeah,
Yeah, because
it's
she knocks
after
over the
yeah.
guy's basket.
Yeah.
Yeah, she knocks over the guy's basket. He's like, "Oh, you're gonna have to pay for that." And she like looks up, and like the police officer's like, "Who's causing trouble here?" or something like that. And like Belinda looks up and like foolishly raises her hand.
Well, like I
Like, "Oh
think
yeah,
Wait, did she really? Okay.
you don't see the guy's face, but he's like gesturing at her. After
That makes
okay.
sense because I was gonna say I think Aaron's description of the scene took longer than the whole time from Belinda leaving the TARDIS to Belinda arriving at the barber shop.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
I
like,
guess, and the crowd is kind of backed away around her, and she's really kind of the sore thumb in the group. So,
Mm.
yeah,
like, she's Indian, but like, she's
yeah,
not Nigerian,
yeah, like
Yeah.
or
it's
Black
like,
Nigerian.
yeah, it's like the cop, like asks who's causing trouble. He gestures at her, and
Mm-hmm.
then she slowly raises her hand, but then we never see
Mm-hmm.
the aftermath of that.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, like, I was expecting her to be down at the police station and everything, and her trying
mm,
to explain, oh yeah, I'm looking for my friend, the doctor.
mm. Which, like,
So,
if this was either a longer episode or B, like a two-parter, maybe that would have worked. But it seems like it's something that it was a subplot that they cut, but they forgot to cut that little exchange.
mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm kind of torn between two things, but since we don't have a fourth person and I'm at the end of the line, I'm gonna just kind of mention them. One is something that I already explained how, like, I get it, it makes sense. But I kind of still think that the whole thing of like the doctor like getting mad at Omo, I don't think it really the way it played out. I don't think it really added anything to the episode. I mean, on one hand, I still find it hard to say that Omo did anything. Like Omo didn't like it wasn't even like oh the psychic paper says Omo is calling for help. Like that didn't the doctor showed up of his own accord
Mm,
for unrelated reasons. That's not Omo's fault at all.
mm,
So as much as I can understand the justifications for that scene, I don't think it added anything to the story. And on a similar note, the story about Belinda and the patient, unless I missed something, and of course I only watched the episode once, it's very possible or very likely that I missed something. I don't. That story didn't seem to like. It was just other than like, oh yeah, this other than the whole part about the doctor's brain actually like makes these real movies play out behind him, and Belinda is exists in the story. The actual content of the story, I don't think really did anything. Like, okay, Belinda has experiences with arthritis and is a very good nurse, and she's even good enough to sometimes make a diagnosis, and her colleagues will respect her enough not to like, be super like anti-nurse and be like, oh, only doctors can make that sort of claim.
mm,
Uh, unless that's relevant in the finale, I don't see how any of that added to this specific story. It really felt like a low energy moment relative to the rest of the story.
I
So,
mean,
Bill, you were breaking up for a lot of that for me. Could
oh,
you just briefly
my,
reiterate what it was?
as in which scene I was talking about?
Yeah.
The scene of the story the doctor tells about Belinda and the patient.
Okay.
like, I actually,
Was I breaking up on your end,
oh,
Alex,
no, no,
or was
no,
it
no.
okay?
On my end, you were fine.
So it's probably the connection where you
Possibly.
are.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I liked the Belinda story. Like, that was my backup if I was going
Okay.
second and someone had taken my favorite scene. But I think it's mainly because,
Okay.
like, it's more. I mean, for one thing, we had an episode with no Belinda, and then we get a story about here's something from before Belinda met uh the
Right.
doctor. And it, like, to me, the point it seems to be getting across is that she's very put upon, because, like, she's trying to go for her
Mm-hmm.
it's her like, the whole thing is it's her nan's birthday, so she either should be off the clock or was given permission to leave early,
Right.
so she was on her way out, and they're like, oh, hey, you, come in here and help us with this. Oh, you figured it out what the problem is. Sweet, I'm going to leave. You have to stay here.
Which
And
I get that, but what's the payoff?
I mean, the payoff is that the woman lives, so she's like, okay, it was ultimately worth
But
it.
but that's part of like this story. This scene is setting something up, right? It's in the beginning of the episode. It's telling a story about Belinda. It's a setup for something, or it's a setup for nothing.
Well,
It's too early in the, it's
like,
not really
I don't
paying
think
things off because Belinda hasn't even entered the story yet. There can't be a payoff yet.
I think I mean, maybe it's just the idea that like Belinda is able to see things others can't because she's the one who gets through to Abhinav that, you know, this guy is not great. Like what this guy is trying to do is not great. So, you know,
Okay.
maybe don't get blinded by what you've been put through kind of a thing. I don't know. Like either way, it was just kind of maybe it's just that I'm so desperate to get anything about Belinda
Right.
because we've gotten so little.
I wish like what I think would have been a better use of this scene was if the story the doctor tells had something to do with hurt people. Because I think that would have been a stronger connection to the overall episode. Otherwise, he's basically like, yeah, Belinda started the B plot of a Scrubs episode, basically, or that's the only medical drama I've ever watched. Sorry. Which says, yeah, Belinda is a character with experiences, but it doesn't say something about this episode to me.
I mean, beyond just the fact that she's a caring person, that she was willing to stay with that woman, and that ultimately
she wasn't
saved
willing
a
to stay
woman's
with
life.
that woman. She was forced to.
Oh, you know what I mean? Like, she could have easily have palmed it off to someone else if she'd found someone that either she was above or on the same level of. She'd be like, hey, I need to go. It's my nan's birthday. Can you cover for me? I need to get the hell out of here right now. But instead, she's like, well, fuck it. I kind of have to. Like,
Which, as a
like,
minor part of that, like, I'm not sure, especially in a country that, I mean, I guess the UK has been going downhill compared to other places in Europe. But my understanding is that unlike the US, they do things like respect when your shift is over relative to the US. So, and I usually hear about that sort of thing happening to doctors. If it happens to nurses, they don't talk about it as much. So that felt a little weird, but not.
I mean,
not scene breakingly weird.
The NHS is a bit of a mess at the moment, for all I understand. So maybe that's part of it. Of like nurses being like, actually, no. I think I've seen stuff about nurses talking about how they are overworked and being like, "How dare you lot seem to be fine with cuts to the NHS, but then decide to stand outside your house and clap for nurses, like fuck you," kind of a thing. So, you know, that could be a whole other thing, but yeah.
Yeah, so I would be interested in hearing, again, if anybody listens to this and is in the YouTube comments, if you know about, nurses being forced to stay after their shift, I'd love to hear, if there's truth to that. But yeah, I mean, I'll agree with the general sentiment. Like, these aren't things that I absolutely hated. It was like, oh my God. Like, I wasn't watching the episode and like, oh my God, I hated that scene.
Yeah.
How could they air, these would be considered like really nitpicky complaints in any other episode. And on that note, final thoughts.
I feel like if this isn't,
but before, actually, I do just kind of want to point out, in case anyone wants to include it in their final thoughts, we have not talked about that doctor montage in any capacity yet. So if it comes up in final thoughts,
I mean, I did like it. I do like that they kept like I mean, I don't know why I thought they wouldn't, but it was nice that Jodie both appeared and got like a little voice line in there. But yeah, like in a general sense for this episode, and also I guess the reason that might have potentially qualified for me as a favorite scene is that it was the Doctor invoking his history without it being the usual thing you would expect from an RTD era type story. Where like normally the Doctor would invoke I'm the Doctor run kind of, it's like it's not 11, it's not the 11th hour I'm the Doctor basically run. It's
right.
the Doctor invoking,
or the episode we had last season.
Yeah, like it's the Doctor invoking his own history as a way to solve the problem of the episode effectively.
It's not like if it happened in Looks when they would be like, "Oh, you're the one who killed the Maestro and Sutak." He'd be like, "Yes, I'm the Doctor and I'm all these different things."
Yeah. It's more of a I can overload this by just giving it my life story. So it's like it's an interesting way to play with that. But yeah,
Goku versus Yakon.
But yeah, in a general sense, if this isn't my favorite story of this era thus far, then it's up there. Like, this is easily my favorite episode of this season so far. Which is saying something because it's like what, episode 5 of 8?
Yeah.
So a bit annoying that it took this long. I mean, Boom was my favorite last. Like, if it's not Boom, it's like Dot and Bubble for me for the previous. And like, those were, one was late, one was early. Like Boom was at episode 3, and Dot and Bubble was like what, episode 6? I think.
Boom was your
5
5.0 of last season.
But yeah, this is like, honest to God, rewatching this. I think not even rewatching. I think watching this the first time made me reconsider scores I had given other episodes this season. Like, which that doesn't happen often. Like that, I will reconsider more than one.
Was I 2?
Yeah. Like, yeah, that's like basically the thought I had is like, wow, was I being too nice to some of these other stories? Because this is like way better than them. This is almost a like, well, honestly, yeah, pretty much. Like my faults with it are so minor, and so I don't really give a crap, that this is like the most I like. This is good, no notes. Like, like kind of
is it
episode.
like unique feeling? Like if someone talks about the episode, are you going to be able to recall it like right away?
I'd say so. I mean, like, the funny thing is this one, at least to me, is the only one so far where I haven't been able to tangentially relate it to an episode from last season. Lucky Day, 73 yards. I mean, maybe the well as well can't really, but even then we had a lot of we had like at least a decent amount of like even if they weren't like massive complaints, just like, negative stuff to say about the well. And like the first 2 episodes were basically the Space Babies and the Devil's Court again to a point. But this, like, I tried to think, could I compare this to Dot and Bubble? Not really. Because Dot and Bubble is covering a very different thing in a future setting as well. So yeah, this does feel like the most unique story thus far. I don't even know what I could really compare it to in general in Doctor Who. That's what's kind of amazing about it. the last time I remember having this feeling about something like this, in terms of I don't know if I can really compare this to anything else in Doctor Who, was Kinder. And that's a kind of an interesting thing, because Kinder had some like commentaries on colonialism, but was written by an entire cast of white people. Whereas this is the opposite of that. But yeah, like this was one, like, as like I said, I didn't leave it, I didn't have it in my notes for last week, but Lucky Day was an episode that I really didn't want to rewatch. But I had to give thoughts for it because I wasn't going to be here, so I had to. This was an episode where I was looking forward to rewatching it. And
yeah,
it's like there are episodes where I'll be gearing up for that, and then I'll rewatch it and start picking it apart. And this wasn't one of those. Like this is absolutely of this era thus far, this is probably the one episode that I would recommend above all else, to be quite honest. Like, I did not expect, like I said it in the spoiler chat, just wow, what an upswing from last week.
Yeah.
That's like my lowest rating I've given in some time for a modern era episode. To like, we'll get to it, but this is gonna be pretty high. Like, absolutely worth watching.
All right, Aaron, final thoughts.
I'm trying to think. So along that lines too, I think with this season, just because Lux is so unique with the animation, that one is probably ultimately going, and I'm also a fan of animation, so it's probably going to stick out to me more than this one. But this one is so unique, and it deals with such complex. It deals with such a wide variety of topics. Um, that even though it just touches on them, I think it does them very concisely. I think it's just, and we had enough issues with Lux that this one is, I don't have nearly as many issues with. Maybe the idea that the Doctor kind of forgives his enemies a little bit too easily, but I think that's also a main theme, is being able to forgive people. So I'm sure there'll always be kind of a lack of trust there, but like, yeah, especially compared to the previous episode too, where he was just flat out going after Conrad and been like, yeah, no. Yeah, I think that this one is definitely something people should see. If you don't watch anything else in this season, at least watch this episode. It introduces all new topics like the web, the idea of a storytelling machine, which is kind of almost chaos godlike. So it kind of fits in with that theme without actually being a chaos god.
Yeah, I'm still mixed as to
The
whether
culture.
there is a chaos god in this story or not.
Yeah.
It almost
Yeah.
seems like a subversion. He's like, I'm supposed to be a harbinger, but they didn't respect me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm unionizing the harbinger. Not quite, but that's kind of like the vibe.
Well, see, I was just thinking that he's almost like a rogue.
You cut out there.
Yep. Hopefully not permanently.
At least some
Oh, you're
like
back.
books, some Doctor Who books and stuff that went over him would talk about the Toymaker being a rogue Time Lord, like the monk, and of course the Master and all the others, and Ronnie.
Nah.
So
Yeah, like
Yeah, it's almost as if the barber were treated like that
Yeah,
too. Sorry.
yeah, I
yeah.
did.
Your voice cut out for a bit, but I think we got the gist of what you were saying about
Yeah.
being. It sounds like
Mhm.
as if the barber were a rogue Time Lord.
Mm.
Mhm. Mm.
Alex, you're about to say
Yeah.
something,
Yeah, like
I think.
uh if this story hadn't gone the way it was, I did almost think that he was going to turn out to be a rogue Time Lord. So, which I would have been fine with,
I think
but
we talked about it last week about that he might be. Yeah.
I mean, literally, his by lack of not having a given name until like he's given one at the end of the episode, he basically has a like vaguely
He's in a time
rogue
space
Time Lord
machine that's
name.
bigger on the inside than it is on
Yeah,
the outside.
yeah, and his nickname is just the profession in this case, I guess,
He
by
he
virtue of
he didn't
the
go to the
barber.
academy. He went to tech school to get a barber's license instead of a
mm,
doctorate or a master's degree.
mm. And I mean, by virtue of the fact that he literally built that nexus and all that, like, yeah, the idea is the storytelling gods made it into something bigger, but the fact that he was able to do that at all, um,
Mhm.
like, seems like it would have been ripe for Rogue Time or thing. Like, I'm kind of glad they didn't go that way, in a way, because that would feel like
Mhm.
it's taking away from what the story's trying to do, but it would have been it's like it's set up in a way where you could have gone that way, but I'm always kind of glad they didn't.
Anything else?
I think that's it for me.
Okay. I will agree that this is some of the best Doctor Who that we've seen. It deals really interestingly, and like it has the edutainment stuff going on. It has good storytelling. It has things. It's thought provoking, right? We're sitting here discussing the themes instead of having a theme that was kind of like printed on a sheet of paper and handed to us. It's interesting, right? It has a lot of like unique for Doctor Who, unique like visual design elements and character elements. Uh, so it's ticking all the boxes there. I almost like it's funny because normally like these are the high points of any given episode. I kind of feel like the Doctor montage was sort of almost arbitrary and unneeded. They're like, oh, we need one of these every season. But it did fit. Like it did fit in what they were going for. It's like, why can the Doctor overload the machine? Well, because really, I mean, if you look at the meta angle of this whole season, it's because he is the star of the show Doctor Who, is what they're really getting at. And they kind of hint at that all throughout the episode. One, Mrs. Flood exists. Two, the way it opened up. The fact that there's various other things here, which again ties into that whole like where's the meta and storytelling thing going? Because at this point, like if you look at him as one of the gods we've gotten were basically a god of animation and a god of
For like,
storytelling.
Mm.
It was the god of light, but he functioned as a god of film and animation in
Mm.
his actual incarnation. So we have a lot of meta things going on with even the gods of this season, and I hope there's a strong ending with that at the end of the season.
Mm.
Um, and once again, I probably had other things because I didn't write down any notes. I probably had something else I was going to say here, but I said something else instead. Um, and otherwise, yeah, I think well, yeah, I definitely agree about this being a good episode. Um, like I said, give us more black writers, and maybe we won't feel like Doctor Who is like. It's not that black writers are not capable of retreading the same shit over and over and being boring. But when you increase the diversity of where the ideas are coming from, you increase the diversity of the ideas.
Yeah.
And that partially means being more diverse could even just mean stop having the same 3 people write all the scripts and let 5 people write the scripts, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, ratings.
I guess looking back over previous, I think I am actually going to knock back Robot Revolution to just a 4.
Robot Revolution dropping from a 4.5 to a 4.0, which changes its average from a 4.17 to a 4.0.
And this is getting a full 5. Like, they're like all my negatives on this are just the most scraping the bottom of the barrel nitpicks I can think of. So, yeah.
Okay, Aaron. Oh, I was gonna say, you've so far, Alex, you've been the lowest rating of this season, partially because of last week, and your 5.0 probably would have put you on par with the rest of us, at least until the others were in. But of course, you lowered one of your other ratings. So. All right, Aaron, go ahead.
For some reason, there was something that kind of kept me from rating it a 5.0, and I don't know what it is. But I think it's just too good to be a 4.5. It may not have that unique style that Lux has with the animation, but I think it's an overall better told story than Lux. So I'm going to go ahead and amend it from a 4.5 to a 5.0.
Amend which from 4.5 to 5.0?
I think she means she was
Oh,
going
no,
to give this one a 4.5 and has changed her
Oh,
mind
okay.
to go full 5.
Yeah.
So you're saying 5.0.
Yep.
I'm going to agree 5.0. Looking back at the master sheet, the last 5.0s I gave were Dot and Bubble and Rogue, and I would say this episode definitely, at least at the moment, I'm feeling that it's better than either of those. They both did touch in relevant themes, and we are at the same part of the season. I gave a lot of 5.0s last season, actually, considering that it's like the most hated season, at least in the modern discourse, which is always fickle.
Yeah.
The most hated season. I gave a lot of 4s and 5s, except for the most watched episode. So we have 3 5.0s, which averages out to a 5.0, which makes me feel silly because I actually added new things to the rankings so that they would be more accurate. I updated it to everything from our most recent reviews. But let me sort and see how many 5.0s we have.
I think we have a full 10 now. Yep.
Yep, so 5.0 puts the story in the engine as basically equal to our top 5 episodes. It is on par with The Caves of Androzani, Sarah Jane the Lost Boy, Remembrance of the Daleks, The Face of Evil, Battlefield, Human Nature, Family of Blood, The Doctor's Wife, Turn Left, The Sunmakers, and that's it. It is better than The Pirate Planet, An Unearthly Child, The Silurians, School Reunion, and The Hand of Fear. And it is not as good as the hypothetical 6 out of 5 Doctor Who story that doesn't exist. So at this point, I point out, please let us know in the comments what you thought of this week's episode. Hopefully you've watched it if you've listened to us talk about it all this time. Don't forget to like the video if you've listened this far, and subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Twitch. Now for predictions. Any predictions for either the Interstellar Song Contest or just the whole rest of the season? think I've already said my one prediction is that it's going to prominently feature a transgender plotline because that's what happens when diverse writers get to write for Doctor Who.
I mean, Juno Dawson did write Redacted, and that was more so just that it had a trans character in it rather than being focused on that. So you never know. But in terms of, I don't know if I have any predictions for next week outside of just the fact that I guess if we're following how most, not all, but most of the episodes thus far you've been able to be like, oh, that's the blank of this season. I have a feeling that this will be like Rogue, where it seems this is kind of fun and the villains are a bit silly. Like, as much as they're going around killing people, they're like still fairly comedic villains by the fact that they're just LARPing. And then the ending is very like heartbreaking and like, traumatic for the Doctor. I have a feeling that this will be kind of like that, like especially with the thing that we read before where they were like, expect this to be darker than the name would imply. Sounds like it's going to be very subtle, light and fun and whatever, and then just everything goes to shit. And it becomes very traumatic. I would hope that we get more of an inkling of what the fuck is going on with Mrs. Flood, just because I am kind of over it. Especially because, like, Lucky Day, like, kind of has, like, okay, now it seems like she's actually kind of planning something because she's letting Conrad out of prison. And, like, you could maybe argue it with the well because she's like, yes, it's one of those things. Yes, I'm taking note of that. And, like, this one, she's there, but it's just in a flashback and the Doctor doesn't see. So he doesn't take note of, hey, what's she doing there?
And it's a flashback from before, seemingly before Belinda met the Doctor.
Yeah. So it's like,
I mean, she's picking up she says she's picking up her medications, but not necessarily means that she's picking them up for herself.
True.
But yeah, it's like, it is a bit, it really is a way too Susan Twist of just doing the same thing again in that regard. And it's just like, oh, come on. Can we actually do something with this character? Because if it, like, honestly, can we just do away? Can we just do away with these mystery box things, please, Russell? Can we just stop? I'm sick of it. Like, the thing is, we already have like an ongoing, like, we don't need two effectively because we've got two going at the moment. One that actually kind of works, which is the why can't we get Belinda back to this specific date? That's the through line. We don't need that, and Mrs. Flood just keeps showing up and I wonder why. It's like
we have Tegan and Missy at the same time.
Basically.
Now all we need is a piece of graffiti that recurs throughout every episode to have the trifecta.
Yeah. And especially given that, like, there's the whole thing of, like, one of the kids from Space Babies shows up and apparently is going to get mentioned next episode, possibly. That may be indirect. I don't know, because they bother to bring it up. But I would assume that means that it's not going to be an Easter egg then, because otherwise, why would you preemptively say this reference is going to happen? So, like,
if they tease it, that makes me wonder. Maybe like in the first 10 minutes, we'll be like, "I'm a grown-up version of the baby Poppy."
Yeah, like,
yeah, completely missed that it was Poppy from Space
Oh
Beast.
yeah, I didn't.
And I thought it was the Timeless Child.
Yeah, I didn't realize, because I thought it might just been like a harbinger or something, just something random happening. But like,
I thought it was just a baby.
yeah. Well, I mean, you know, she's there
until it got brought up later, and they said it was important. Yeah.
Yeah, like I think I forget what I was reading, but something listed like this kid as Poppy from Space Babies, and I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Oh.
So it's like, yeah, it's like this kid reprising. I don't remember if it was reprising role or whatever, but like, you know, although this was shot like well before it aired, so this kid has had time to grow up a little bit, so it could literally have been the same kid. Just like a few, like old enough to walk, basically. But I'm just kind of like, what? So like, but then again, like as I said, like near like when we were talking about stuff way earlier, that like the last episode is called The Reality War, so I could see it being a very like timelines are starting to fold in on themselves kind of a thing. Like the Doctor explains it away as like, oh well, you know, stories were getting muddled and this and blah and whatever, but like,
right.
I have
Which does support the whole like the story engine was fucking up the fabric of reality theory.
yeah. Which to that end could mean that this does somehow come back if we've got the final story is called, if the final episode is called The Reality War, and this was an episode messing with reality. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, we'll see where we go. I just hope that whatever it ends up being the case with Mrs. Flood, I just hope it's fucking worth the wait, because if he botches this,
Mm-hmm.
then that's going to be 2 seasons worth of setup for basically nothing. And
I think even RTD knows he can't get away with, oh, there's just a bunch of women that happen to be related or look similar to one another who kept appearing but are just regular people.
Yeah. And I guess technically in the grand scheme, he also be like, the Doctor is also like, oh, you know, I met your like such and such times a million descendant in the future to Belinda, as that tie into the same actress having played Mundy in Boom.
I'm gonna have to go back and see if fucking Mrs. Flood appears in Boom without us
No.
having known about it.
She was only it was only Susan Twist in that. It was Mrs. Flood only appears in modern day in season 1. It's only season 2 that she started appearing elsewhere. I guess
what if it is all just a screw up?
I guess technically she also shows up briefly, like in not modern day, by virtue of she has that like spike the like hello audience thing at the end of Joy to the World to remind you that she exists, which is technically supposed to be set like, oh no wait, that is supposed to be set after Ruby's left the TARDIS. For some reason I was thinking, no, that's set a year before, isn't it? Oh no, it's supposed to be
both.
Like,
there's time travel.
Oh well, yeah.
There's some, yeah.
But yeah, she
There's
shows
so
up
much
at the
similarity between her and Susan Twist that
there is now.
I almost wonder if it is a mess up.
Because I guess if the idea is that reality is going to shit, which I'm also just kind of over, like the world's ending kind of finales. I'm just kind of over it. Like, can we just have something that's more character driven than
So more like I want to say Chibnall finales, but I'm trying to think of, I know at least let me see.
I mean, I guess
Chibnall. I know
like,
the first one was very character driven.
yeah, like there
What
was
was the second?
like there was still like with the Battle of Ranskor Kolos, it was still very like the world is going to blow up, but it was more about, to me
It
at
was a different
least,
world.
yeah, and to me, well, I think Earth was in trouble, but it was also a matter of like the focus was less on that and more on will Graham kill this guy?
Right,
Like,
right.
so there was some character driven shit going on. As a
Timeless Children was mostly about like well, it was mostly about the Cybermen, really, but
I guess even to that end, the Chibnall era ends on a story that's mostly just the Master versus the Doctor, not the Master is trying to destroy all
yeah.
reality, or he's not trying. Yeah, he's not trying to destroy the Earth. He's not trying to destroy reality. He's just trying to take over the Doctor so he can.
Like how we skipped over the finale, well, kind of finale anyway. That was basically, oh yeah, they were trying to destroy all of reality, and then the
Right.
Doctor
Yeah.
tripled herself, stopped it.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. Like I mean, most RTD and Moffat finales were the universe is just getting ready to implode, or Earth is going to be destroyed, or whatever. And it's just like, I'm kind of over it. Like, can we, like, the funny thing is,
Daleks are going to destroy the world.
mm,
The Cybermen and Daleks were fighting over who got to destroy the world.
yeah,
The Master was going to destroy. Well, he probably wasn't going to. Oh no, he had enslaved the world.
yeah,
Um, Davros was going to destroy the universe.
yeah, like he was going to, yeah, like the reality bomb, like that's a callback.
Yep.
Like, we go
The
from
TARDIS was going to blow up and destroy the universe somehow. The Wedding of River Song. That was. Oh no, that was no, that's not a Christmas. What was the
like the
time was happening all at once, but I don't remember why.
I was like, there was the thing with the great intelligence trying to influence the
That was the
Doctor's
following season, yeah.
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 Because it's hard to remember because there's like, especially because Series 7 is like split in half, and then the second half is the
Right.
Clara stuff.
Yeah, and Series 7 actually at least is not on Earth.
Yeah.
It's all about the Doctor.
Yeah, it's, like I could just go without, like, again, like I'm of the mind, if we're only gonna keep getting 8 episodes due to like budget cuts or whatever the fuck, or they just don't want to commit to longer
Dude,
series.
it seems it's due
seasons or
to the
whatever.
freaking television industry imploding right now.
Yeah. And like, if that's all we're gonna get, give me 2 4-parters a year. Just split these 8 episodes in half, 4-part story, 4-part story. Like, I would much rather that, or again, as I've said before, if this is all we're getting, everything's a 2-parter. Like, I would rather not have 2-parters this long, but if that's what we're gonna get, then just do 2-part stories. Or like, again, like, if like this is closer to it, this is closer to kind of something I talked about with Bill before. I forget if I brought it up on the podcast specifically or not yet, but this season plot, aside from the fucking Mrs. Flood stuff, is closer to what I would rather want if we're gonna keep getting individual episodes mostly, where like there's a hook of, like, it's, as again, like the example I used when I brought this up with Bill was like the Key to Time, where the Key to Time you can kind of view as like 4 separate but technically connected stories, like 4 of however many there are stories, because it's like there's an overarching thing where we've got to find the keys to time, but they're otherwise telling their own story within that framing device. And then the Armageddon factor is the one where we like conclude that. So it's like, if we were having more things like that, like, yeah, Flux didn't really work out as well, but to be fair, Chibnall mostly wrote that himself, and as much as I'm more forgiving of the Chibnall era than a lot of other people are, yeah, his strength was never going to be trying something like that. I think he mainly just did that because of the restrictions he was given. But yeah, I would either rather just a serialized season, or again, something like The Key to Time, where there's an overarching story that is set up. I guess that's the other thing. Get rid of mystery boxes. Just have an overarching thing that you set up in the first story that resolves at the end of the season, rather than, ooh, what's happening? Because that I'm completely over with. Like, I'm sick of that shit. Can we knock it off, please? Like, you did this last time, Russell. Just grow as a writer, please. You evidently did, because you wrote other shit, like, since. But you've basically fallen into your old habits. Can you please throw mystery boxes out the window?
A tradition since Bad Wolf.
Mm-hmm.
And possibly before. I haven't listened to any of his audio dramas. All right. Next time we continue the new series with the Interstellar Song Contest. Written by Juno Dawson and starring Shuta Gatwa as the Doctor and Virata Sethu as Belinda Chandra. We will see you then. Oh no.